This video is the rebuild of an acetylene regulator for a Victor FPR160. I have another video of the rebuild of the oxygen regulator, Victor FPR150. I got these from Regulator, Torch, and Exchange. They're about 40 bucks. My recommendation is if you're gonna do the oxygen regulator, watch the acetylene video first because the video quality is a lot higher, and then it'll make more sense when you watch the oxygen video, because I apologize, it's pretty poor quality, but you'll see some of the difference in the steps. Good luck. So looking at the parts that came out, this was the acetylene side, this is the oxygen side. Just two of the fundamental differences. There's a piece that goes around this O-ring that you'll see in the video, and this O-ring is part of that piece, but you can see how just the diaphragms are placed and those pieces go back. Whereas in the acetylene kit, this whole piece is sent new, and it doesn't have that component in there. So that's really the primary difference. And then on the acetylene kit, this was 4 tabs, and so it's a little trickier to get back on. And so I showed how to do that using and just an electrical connector to smash the tabs down. Whereas on the oxygen side, it was much easier because it was just 2 tabs. Or sorry, the 4 tabs were on the oxygen, 2 tabs on the acetylene, and it was pretty easy to get that on. So, okay, so the purpose of this video is to show the rebuild of a Victor series FPR160. So this is the portable kit, the oxyacetylene kit, and I went ahead and bought the rebuild kit from Regulator and Torch Exchange Inc. It's called a SR. It's an SR160 RK repair kit, and cost was, after shipping, 43 bucks. The main reason for buying the rebuild kit versus buying a new regulator is just I like the brass, the all brass, and Victor's gone with these plastic knobs. Probably everything, all things equal, no difference, but I just like the brass better. So, okay, first step. The reason for this video also is that I just could not find anything on the web about this rebuild. There were a lot of Victor rebuilds, but not for this specific one. So this is the acetylene side. I've already done the oxygen side, but the first step is to unscrew this cap, and I'm not going to be able to do it by hand. I'll give it a shot. But so got a little strap wrench here from Harbor Freight, probably, I don't know, 5 or 10 bucks, and just gonna pop that off if possible. But the trick with, if you haven't used this strap wrench before, is you want it to bite down on this side as you're turning it. So, you know, not the way I just did it. But, so as I turn it, now I'm gonna try and not put all the pressure on the gauges if possible, but there's not a whole lot that you can really hold on to, so I've got to just try and keep it down on the brass fittings. So just give me 1 second here. Okay, it's loose. Strap wrench worked. Won't lie, it's on there tight, boy, but it is just a normal thread. So just get a hold of it between your legs and get that strap wrench on it, and it'll feel like you're getting nothing, but eventually, you know, if you've got the strap wrench biting down and putting pressure on that part, it'll go ahead and it'll loosen it up. But it was definitely tight. But it is just a normal thread. here's where you gotta kind of want to watch when you pull it apart. So first thing, you don't really need to take this out, but we'll go ahead and take it out just because we're gonna re-grease that. Okay, so when I take this top off, that's what's under there. So this piece just is a little set piece on the spring. You can see the grease for the regulator end. We'll set him over there. I'm going to keep the spring in the same direction. And then the next part seems kind of tricky, but it's actually not that bad. So this is the diaphragm. And to get this guy off, it's actually this metal piece under there that's holding him on. And so what you can do, there's probably better ways to do this, but there's a little lip under here. I think I used a screwdriver before, but I'm just gonna try and see how I just slid the pick. I just leveraged him. And you are gonna reuse this brass piece right here, so it's good to try and not overdo it, but really the truth is that it's just stuck there by the old rubber. So now that that piece is off, he's got a little bit of an upward lip. So we'll set him over there. And now, so what happens is this rubber in here is just old. And so he's got to come off. And it may need a little bit of a, you don't want to use a razor blade, but it may need a little bit of support. Okay, at this point I'm just going to go ahead and show you what comes in this kit. And I'm actually wrong, that brass piece is not reused. So when you look at what comes in this kit, some of the parts are pretty small. So here's a new ring. Here's the new diaphragm. And then you get a couple new washers. This guy is new. And there's a little new filter. And we'll get to this guy in a moment. So that's what comes in the kit. It is different than the oxygen kit, interestingly enough, because there was another washer that came in the oxygen kit that I believe went inside one of these parts. Okay, so to get this guy off, it looked like he was smashed down, and it's tempting to take a razor blade, but the truth is that there's, I just pulled up on him and see, it's just flush in there. So there you go. All right, so we'll set this guy off to the side, and this guy is now the full replacement for him. Now I realize it looks a little different, but it's not going to matter in the end. So now the next step, he's ready to go in. We'll clean up this edge a little bit, but the next piece that's going to come out is I'm going to go get the proper socket, and we'll take this guy off. Okay, so just 9/16 socket. Going to put it on there, take him off. Now the tough part in this is that I hate working on things without torque specs, and I don't have a torque spec for this. So I'm gonna just have to go by feel when I go to put it back on. Not real tight, that was just kind of hand tight. Kind of a hand and then a little bit of a snug, right? So we'll slide him off now. Okay, so what you can see in here is there's a piece, and the back that you're looking at is this piece here. Now in a moment you'll see how it stays in there, see how it doesn't fall out. That's part of the kit. But in the interim, you can see there's a little spring in there, and you don't get a new spring. And so I'm going to gently, maybe, pull that spring out. We'll set him off on our pieces that we're going to keep. He looks okay. And down in the bottom there, you'll see there's a little filter. And he may or may not drop out. Yep, there he goes. So here's the little filter. So he goes off. First thing we'll do, we'll go ahead and drop in our new filter. Now it's got to seat flat, so you may have to kind of, don't bend him, but you got to kind of wiggle him around. There it goes. So you need a pick to do that. Okay, so it's difficult to see, but down inside here, now that we've replaced the filter, you can see the new filter sitting down in there. Now we'll pull this old gasket out, and we'll put our new gasket in. And he just drops in like that. Yep. Make sure he's seated properly, and he is. Okay, so at this point, the next step is you'll see how this is moving freely in here. So when I pull this out, it'll look like that. Now at this point, I need to point out, you'll see how this is bent forward towards the pin, but the part that comes with it is just flat. Now on the oxygen regulator, it's slightly different. It's got 4 prongs, and the way that this works is you gotta get him started. Maybe I'm just using my finger to try and it's like that hole is just a touch small. So now I'm gonna so he's seated. The old one, you can see, is seated right up against the end, so you want that one seated against the end. And now the question is, how do you get them in there without getting him caught? And the way that I did this prior was, this is where you may have to improvise a little bit. This is just an electrical fitting. But the way I'm using it is, you just need something round that will fit around this, and see how it's squashed that. So now I've probably pushed it on a bit too far, but if I can just get him started, and then get the other one. Almost. There. Now they're started. And he may or may not go in because he's awfully tight on that fitting. Alright, hold on, I've got him just a bit too tight. Actually, you know what? For the oxygen regulator, I needed that, but this one, I'm just gonna try my fingers. Yeah, okay, you don't need that. But what I am gonna do is come back and just work each side of him to make sure he stays flush against the bottom. And I'm being real careful with the pick so I don't scratch any of the brass. And I think we're good to go. It seems like it's pressed up there nice and tight. Okay, and the pin's sticking out, which is what we want. So at this point, this guy's ready to go back in. Take my 9/16. And again, this is where you have to use a little bit of judgment on the amount of pressure. But I knew how much it took to get them out. So that's about as hard as I'm gonna go. Just hand tight and just a little bit more. And at this point, definitely not gonna use my pick at all. But I may, to scrape, but I may just run it and just gently, just make sure there's nothing that's loose. It doesn't really look that bad actually. So, I'll just use a paper towel. So I just want to get any film, and there is a little bit of gunk, but not a lot, not enough to really cause any issue. And at this point, I'll go ahead and set my new diaphragm in. I'll put in my new metal piece with the lip pointed up. Make sure it's seated properly. I want to make sure the other one this rubber is thicker because it hasn't been crushed. I just want to make sure that's seated in there properly before I drop this guy on here. Make sure it's centered. And then need my spring. Oop, you know what? I forgot a piece. All right, my bad. Don't do what I just did, which was, let me pull this out gently so I forgot about the spring. And that spring is right there. There we go. Okay, now put this cap back in. Okay. He's on there, good. Goes on there. That piece goes on top. And set this spring on. Now before I put the cap on, alright, I'm gonna go ahead and just wipe that grease off of there. And the reason is I'm gonna put fresh grease on it. So I'm just gonna add a little bit. Nice clean. Go back on, and at this point I can place the cap back on. Alright, now before I put the brass on this piece, I'm going to tighten it down with the wrench. Now how tight should it be? Pretty tight, because it was pretty tight getting it off. So I may not be able to film this, but I'm gonna put my strap wrench on down here the opposite way this time. Again, I want the hose to smash down on there. Okay, and now the last piece, I'll clean him off as well. He really doesn't need grease because it's on the other part, but we'll just put a little bit just to make sure that there's grease on all of it. And now I just drop him in like so. Make sure he screws down freely. Yep. That's fully depressing the spring, which we don't need to do, but he's free to move, so. And the last step is to test it. Alright, all I got left is to test this. So let me just put this on. Get this guy on. A reverse thread, and make sure that you're supporting that before you go cranking on it. Doesn't have to be real tight. Okay. And then what I like to do is I go ahead and open the acetylene valve up front just so that I don't accidentally overpressure the gauges, just in case. So that's already open. Back the regulator out all the way, and just gently pressuring up. And it's leaking. Have to tighten this a bit more. We'll put a bubble test on that later just to make sure it's not leaking. But the regulator seems to be holding okay. We'll begin to tighten it and see how we go here. And there it goes. That's good. Now we'll close this off and just see if we can regulate down to about 4 or 5 pounds. And yep, and that's good. Okay, so now we'll back that guy back out to 0. Go ahead and close this off to keep it safe. Release all the excess pressure off the hose, and we're good to go. And we'll back him off.